Hello and welcome to episode 174 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I'm one of the co-founders here at ETR, as always, joined by fellow co-founder Evan Silva. Free agency is over. NFL draft is coming up later this month. It is April 1st today. Happy April Fool's Day to everyone out there. Of course, we are tracking all of it. NFL as closely as ever here in April. Shout out to Team No Sacks. Evan, what's going on?
What's going on? Ready to talk some win totals, some depth charts, some free agency winners and losers, and just kind of get everybody up to date on anything they might have missed this offseason that is critical to fantasy football and sports betting. And, if you haven't already heard the NFC show, check it out. We're talking AFC today.
Yep. As Evan said, last episode was NFC today. We will be going team by team through the AFC. Before we get into it, wanted to remind everyone that our 2021 draft kit is indeed live. Focus right now is on best ball. We have rankings for every possible format. Those rankings update with all the news. $34.99 will get you the draft kit, which again will update continuously through week one with all our season long prep materials, including Evan's top 150. All right, let's get into it with Baltimore. And so everyone was saying, you got to get Lamar wide receiver help. You got to get Lamar an alpha wide receiver. Lamar needs a number one opposite Marquise Brown. That's just not the way the Ravens have done business. They've been adding these mediocre veterans at the wideout position for a long time, and they did it again by adding Sammy Watkins. And so I'm not that optimistic that Sammy Watkins is going to have a way to succeed here. Sammy Watkins failed I would say for the most part, failed with Patrick Mahomes. This would not stop me. Watkins signing would not stop me if I was Baltimore from going wide receiver at 27th overall with their draft pick. What do you think about the Ravens offseason and how Sammy Watkins fits?
Well, the Ravens did try to go after Kenny Golladay. They tried to go after Juju. They tried to go after T.Y. Hilton. But, how incentivized are those wide receivers to go to a team that, the Ravens threw the ball like 250 fewer times than, say, the Chiefs last year. These guys are not going to go put up big numbers, especially guys that wound up settling for one-year deals like Juju and T.Y. Hilton. I mean, it's just not a great spot to go get receiver production. And so they had to settle for Sammy Watkins, who, although he's only 27, I think it feels like he's on the back nine of his career. Certainly from a durability standpoint, he's not been able to stay healthy really for the bulk of his career. I think that Willie Snead leaving opens up some opportunity for Devin Duvernay, a pretty good prospect coming out of Texas last year. And he saw some snaps as a rookie. His playing time increased down the stretch. I think that he is a guy that could pop up and be, an interesting late round pick in best ball with an expanded role. I think they can get more out of Mark Andrews. He did not have his best season last season. Marquise Brown, I think, is still a player in ascent, but I think they need to throw some darts at receiver still in the draft, and I think that they will. Kevin Zeitler was a very big signing for them. Right guard was a problem area all last year after Marshall Yanda retired, and Kevin Zeitler is an excellent solution there.
J.K. Dobbins, we talked about a lot. Last year we talked about a lot. I don't think I played J.K. Dobbins once in DFS last year. People love J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins' ADP right now is like 24th overall, 26th, 27th overall. I think that's just absolutely insane. We have him 50th overall in our rankings. I think Gus Edwards is going to play a lot, man. And I don't think J.K. Dobbins is going to suddenly start catching balls. So when you're splitting time and you're not catching passes, it's just really hard for me to find a ceiling. He's going to need to average 6 yards per carry, which I understand he can do. He's going to need to score touchdowns. That's just not something that I like to bet on. So yeah, I mean, for me at 25th overall, J.K. Dobbins is a pretty easy fade. I don't know if you've thought about that at all.
I really like J.K. Dobbins as from a talent standpoint and his fit in the offense from a real life standpoint, but from a fantasy standpoint, he's got probably a ceiling of like something around 25 catches. And so to have these truly big games, and I know that, our thought process are definitely influenced by, individual big games because, you play a ton of DFS and, I dabble, they're not going to be, he's going to need like 2 touchdown games to truly have those spiked weeks. Yeah. And so, being a second round pick, that's tough for me to justify. I like our ranking a lot better.
Yeah. And even for season long, like, these compiling, I hate when people say, oh, X player was the RB13 last season. Like, who cares? That if he stayed healthy, that's why he's probably the RB13. He probably sucked for most of your, wasn't a difference maker in your season long lineup. But you should be wanting to have spike weeks in your season long lineup as well. Not to say that J.K. Dobbins can't. It's just, I don't know, man. Third round, late second, early third is way too rich for me. Bills, our Buffalo Bills. I love the Bills, man. Replace John Brown with Manny Sanders. It does remain to be seen. I know you think Gabe Davis will be the number 3 wide receiver opposite Stephon Diggs and 3 wide receiver sets. We'll see if it's Gabe or if it's Manny, but mostly the same team back, I think, for Buffalo. A lot of the talk with Buffalo has been, will they use their first round pick at running back, Travis Etienne or whoever else? I think the Bills are sharp. I don't think they should do this. I don't think they should use the number 30 overall pick at running back. I mean, we know the impact running back has on wins is very small. We know injury rates are very high. We know the talent difference between all pretty much NFL running backs is very small. It's just hard to profit on a first round pick. So I would not do that at 30th overall, but there's a lot of talk that Bills might do that. What do you think about what the Bills have done so far and what they'll do with that 30th overall pick?
It's just, one of the reasons that we bet on them last year is because they had such immense continuity, and they're doing the same thing this year. I mean, Brian Daboll, for whatever reason, didn't get a head coaching job. He absolutely deserved one, but that's good news for our Bills. They're bringing back all 5 offensive line starters and a bunch of guys that have picked up starts in their career. They have legitimate depth on the offensive line. Even after cutting John Brown, they go 4 deep at receiver. And so I think that they're a team to continue to bet on. What's their win total? I think it's like 11.5.
Yeah, it's high. It's high.
Yeah, so it's pretty high, but I mean, again, I wouldn't take the under.
Yeah. One last thing I want to say about the 30th overall pick. A lot of people say, oh, it's a luxury pick. This team is so loaded. They have talent at every position. In the NFL, man, I really don't think there's such thing as a luxury pick. Like Kansas City thought they had a luxury pick last year. And then instead of going offensive lineman or something, they take CEH. And then Patrick Mahomes is running for his life during the freaking Super Bowl. You know what I mean? And maybe they win the Super Bowl if they take an offensive lineman over CEH. Like to me, there's no such thing as a luxury pick. So I get it. Travis Etienne would be exciting in Buffalo for sure. I just don't think that's the route that I would go personally.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen you arguing with some of their beat writers, getting after it, man. Some heated arguments there. You know
me, always using the reply button on Twitter. That's
no, their win total is actually 10.5. That's very reasonable at -110. Mm-hmm. Actually, I think that's a bet. I'm gonna take that right now.
All right, we're making bets as we record here, folks. Lines are moving. They move the lines when Silva comes in with the win total bet. Okay. Cincinnati Bengals. So rumors are that maybe Gio Bernard is available. Rumors are they could add another wide receiver in the draft, or even maybe Kyle Pitts at number 5 overall. I mean, this is a really valuable pick if you don't need a quarterback, which the Bengals don't, because the first 4 picks could all be quarterbacks. I mean, and you could say teams are stretching. I mean, you could get a really good player at number 5. You're getting Joe Burrow back. They need offensive line help bad though, man. Like they have to protect Burrow. Yep. Like to me, that's the priority. Protect Joe Burrow. I thought Joe Burrow, when he was healthy last year, looked like he was going to be legit, very, very, very good quarterback. We know we like T. Higgins. I like Tyler Boyd plenty. They have Auden Tate. I mean, I think that they're in pretty good shape at weaponry with Mixon and everything. So I'd be looking to add offensive line. What do you think about what the Bengals have done this offseason?
I think that you're absolutely right. They need more offensive line help. I mean, it would be fun on paper to take Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase there at number 5, but I think that they need to take the big offensive lineman Penei Sewell because their offensive line right now is, it's still in really bad shape. I mean, they're looking at Riley Reif they brought in. I mean, he's not very good. Jonah Williams, really hasn't been able to stay healthy. He stayed healthy more last year, but. And then their interior is probably the weakest in the league. So they need to continue to supplement that offensive line, give Joe Burrow a chance. Right now, I think it's interesting to discuss. They do have 3 top 70 picks, and it's supposed to be a deep receiver class. But I think if the season started today, Auden Tate might be the 3rd receiver in 3 receiver sets with Tyler Boyd in the slot and T. Higgins as like the new number 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's interesting for sure. Joe Mixon is the other guy that is going to be a tough ranking. We have Joe Mixon 22nd overall right now, which is slightly ahead of ADP. But man, if Gio moves on somehow, I mean, Joe Mixon was already getting so many touches in the first while Joe Burrow was healthy last year. And so, yeah, I think there's definitely room to profit on Joe Mixon in the late second round right now.
Yeah, I don't know why they would bring back Giovanni Bernard. I think that they're going to end up moving. They would clear $4 million in cap space. They re-signed Samaje Perine. They've got Travion Williams. They've got Joe Mixon back. I don't see any reason. I mean, Giovanni Bernard has basically been a progress stopper for the running backs around him.
Yeah. Okay. Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns, I think, are a very, very, very talented team on paper, especially when you consider they're getting Odell Beckham back. Like, this was a very good team last year. Now they add Odell back. The offensive line, I believe, will return all 5 starters. They added some pass rush help in free agency. Like, on paper, this Cleveland team is very, very, very good. I think the market is on it somewhat because 9.5 is their win total, but over has been juiced up to -150. So have to lay a lot of wood there to get the over on 9.5. What do you think about what the Browns have done?
They were a team that was in heavy transition entering last season. I mean, they made a lot of changes in terms of personnel, but I mean, their whole coaching staff changed, and yet and still they were coached so well that they had no problems, overcoming the lack of practice time and entering the season. Really, well, I mean, I would say they started a little bit slow, but they really caught fire down the stretch, especially Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield kept getting better as the season progressed. So hopefully that can translate to some momentum entering this year. But they're bringing like everybody back. Maybe, one of the best offensive lines in the league. I think the defense will definitely be better in Joe Woods' second year. They've got more talent. They've got injured guys coming back, especially in the secondary. Their win total, yeah, as you mentioned, the juice hurts here at -150, but I do like them to exceed 9.5 wins.
By the way, when we're referencing win totals, last pod and this pod, we're talking about DK Sportsbook. I highly, highly recommend that you shop, though, because these win total lines and prices will be all over the place. So if you're in a place like I am, like Pennsylvania, where Evan is, like Illinois, New Jersey, Colorado, you can find so many different books that will end up posting these, and you can definitely shop and find the best line and find a ton of value. We're just using DK Sportsbook here for convenience sake.
One more note on the Browns. They have 5 picks in the top 110, 6 picks in the first 4 rounds. So they're going to be moving around, adding some definite talent in this draft.
The Denver Broncos did not address QB in free agency, and they haven't moved up in the draft. So they're sitting at number 9 overall. It's not a great spot to get a QB, I don't think, maybe. We'll see what happens. But for now, it looks like Drew Lock is the man. I mean, this supporting cast, we talked about it a ton. Cortland Sutton coming back, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Noah Fant, Mike Boone. Shout out Mike Boone. But yeah, I mean, with Drew Lock, it's just there's not going to be a lot of optimism around Denver. They are 14-1 to win the AFC West. That's even worse odds than the Raiders at 13-1. And of course, the Chargers are at 5-1. Chiefs, massive, massive favorite. But yeah, not a lot of optimism for the Broncos in the market. I think that reflects on Drew Lock, but maybe they do something big in the draft. What do you think is going on with the Broncos?
Yeah, I think they need to make a move, whether it be for Trey Lance or, I don't know, maybe Mac Jones. But I think that the Drew Lock ship has sort of sailed. I think he'd be a good backup. He can come in and be like a short-term spark plug, but I don't think that he's a guy that you want to rely on for a full 17 game schedule anymore. And this supporting cast, I don't want to see it go to waste. I mean, I think John Elway has done a good job building the skill positions, with the exception of quarterback. The offensive line, I think, looks great on paper. The defense looks very, very good, coached by Vic Fangio, who is a talent maximizer on the defensive side. I don't want to see this roster go to waste, running it back again with Drew Lock.
Yeah, and I think there's some value in futures markets on Denver if you think they can solve quarterback somehow around the draft and get really good play there. Because, you're getting just incredible prices on Denver right now relative to their talent, except at quarterback.
Cortland Sutton will be back. He tore his ACL and his MCL last year, but it did occur on September 21st. So when the season starts, almost a full year fully recovered. I still think Jerry Jeudy, one of the best buy lows in Dynasty fantasy. KJ Hamler coming back. Tim Patrick, one of the best number 4 receivers in the NFL. Just really want to see this team capitalize on this.
Yep. Noah Fant, Mike Boone. Okay. Texans. we've been hard on the Texans, but the market agrees. The Texans have the lowest win total in the entire NFL at 4.5 games. Now there's slight juice on the over up to -125. But yeah, I mean, 4.5 in a 17 game season is extremely low. And there's a lot of factors going into this. As Evan has repeatedly said, the talent outside of Deshaun Watson is absolutely inept. But at this point, we don't know how many games Deshaun Watson is going to play. I mean, there are like 18 or 20 women now with civil complaints against Deshaun Watson. I honestly have no idea how it's going to play out, how many games he's going to play, if he's going to be suspended at all, if he's going to spend the whole season. I don't think anybody knows. So it's hard to make a win total on the Texans right now. But what we do know is even with Deshaun Watson, this team is really, really bad. And they don't have a first round pick and they don't have a second round pick. I mean, this has just been a colossal failure from top to bottom. I don't know what else there is to say besides just piling on more on the Texans.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say it doesn't look good right now for Deshaun Watson. The Dolphins just own this team's soul. I mean, literally, the Dolphins have their first and second round picks. Or I guess traded one to with the Eagles. Mm-hmm. But either way, just the Dolphins just destroyed this team in trades. And it looks awful. I think their offensive line could be okay. But they're not going to be able to stop anyone on defense. Again, it's looking bad for Deshaun. Their receiver core is not good. It's just a bunch of guys. I took the under on 4.5.
Oh God.
Yep.
I mean, on a 17 game season, it's like,
I know
it's embarrassing. I mean, 4-13 would be really embarrassing. I mean,
yeah, really, but I mean, again, I think it's sort of like the Jaguars last year. I think they were at 4.5 last year, albeit with a 16 game season, but still the sharp bet was on the under. And I think the case is the same here. And I actually think that this Texans team is much worse than last year's Jaguars.
But if Deshaun Watson somehow escapes all this and ends up playing 17 games, I wouldn't want to be on the under.
We still got a shot. We still got a shot.
Yeah. Okay. Colts. So Colts kind of shot their load on the Carson Wentz deal. They gave up the 85th overall pick in this year's draft and a first round pick in 2022, assuming that Wentz plays at least 75% of the snaps this season. They do bring back T.Y. Hilton. They bring back Marlon Mack. They do have the number 21 overall pick in this draft and number 54. I think. But yeah, I mean, they're all in on Carson Wentz turning it around and Frank Reich being able to turn around. I think bring back T.Y. Hilton is fine. I hope they still let Michael Pittman kind of spread his wings more. But yeah, I thought it was a reasonable offseason for the Colts. And they are the current favorite ahead of the Titans to win the AFC South. What do you think about what the Colts have done? Yeah,
so they lost their offensive coordinator, Nick Sirianni. They're moving forward with Marcus Brady, who was their quarterback's coach the last 3 years. Marcus Brady played in the CFL, coached in the CFL. Their new quarterbacks coach, Scott Milanovich, is a famous CFL coach. And I think that those hires kind of, Frank Reich runs the show here, but I think that those hires kind of exemplify Chris Ballard's willingness to think outside the box and Frank Reich's willingness to think outside the box a little bit. This offensive line, again, stacked. Everybody's coming back except for Anthony Costanzo, who retired. And that, I think, will be their priority in the draft, addressing left tackle. All four of their other guys up front are coming back, and they're all studs.
Jacksonville. So I think you can make a case that James Robinson is a winner of free agency. They only added Carlos Hyde. And they're also getting Trevor Lawrence, of course, at number 1 overall. So the offense is looking up in general, and James Robinson looks like the man. We'll see if they add any running backs in the draft. So they're getting Lawrence at number 1. They also have the number 25 pick, who they got from the Rams in the Jalen Ramsey deal. Then they have the number 33 overall pick. Then they also have number 45 overall, who they got from the Vikings in the Yannick Ngakoue deal. So yeah, a lot of draft capital for the Jaguars on top of getting Trevor Lawrence here. They're 8-1 to win the division. The Colts are even money. Titans are plus 130. I mean, 8-1 is a really big number just to win a division. A division that's certainly no world beaters in it. What do you think about what Jacksonville is doing? And honestly, a lot's going to come down to what they do in the draft.
Yeah, they have 2 first rounders, 2 second rounders, number 65 overall, 2 fourths and 2 fifths.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if James Robinson holders can start, cashing these checks yet, I think they probably take a running back at some point. And they've got Carlos Hyde, who was drafted by their GM, Trent Baalke, in San Francisco and played for Urban Meyer at Ohio State. I think that they do have a chance for a big offensive leap, though, with Trevor Lawrence coming in. Darrell Bevell, who I think was an excellent hire as their OC. I think that DJ Chark, we have not seen him hit his ceiling yet, and the same goes for Laviska Shenault. I don't know. I think that this is a team to buy long term. I think that they did their rebuild right, and they're loaded with draft capital assets. If they hit on some of these guys, I think that we can see them make a big jump here within the next couple of years.
Yeah, they have a big hole at tight end. I mean, I can't face them going back to Tyler Eifert or something like that. So maybe they address tight end at some point in the draft, but obviously they're not really going to be in a position to take Kyle Pitts, who I assume will go well before their number 21 overall pick or whatever that was. The Chiefs. So the Chiefs did make, I mean, everybody saw it, right? I mean, like my wife even saw, like, why is Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, like, getting no time to throw? Like, it didn't take a rocket science to see this. And so they did make an effort to address offensive line in the draft. Joe Thuney on an $80 million deal. Kyle Long comes out of retirement on a 1-year deal. Center Austin Blythe. I think they're going to have 5 different offensive linemen than what they started with in week 1 of 2020. So they're just like completely starting over on the offensive line, which maybe is the right thing to do. What do you think about it? Is there enough protection for Patrick Mahomes? What about what the Chiefs have done this offseason?
Yeah, and I thought that you made a point on Twitter recently about they need to add pass catching help, and I fully agree with that. I don't think that they can rely on Mecole Hardman to be a near every down player. He just hasn't shown enough. And hey, if Tyreek were to go down, like we're dealing with Demarcus Robinson again. Sammy Watkins is gone. If Kelsey were to go down, I mean, it's just the colossal drop to their next tight end, who I believe it would be Blake Bell or Deion Yelder. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're thin right now at the skill positions, and they need to add another pass catcher. But offensive line, I think, needs to be still their number one priority. They get just a bunch of guys up front. I think that if we had Brandon Thorne here to rank offensive lines, they would be very clearly in the top 10. The bottom 10, if not the bottom 5.
Yeah, Brandon's offensive line rankings later this summer will be in the draft kit for sure. Look for that. Not only I don't want to bury Mecole Hardman yet. He's like 22 years old or something like that. It just doesn't look good right now. But we know that Demarcus Robinson and Byron Pringle aren't it. And we know that Travis Kelce is 32 years old. Like, I know that I'm hard on old guys, but like outside of outliers, I mean, you can't say that Travis Kelce is going to keep this up for the next 2, 3, 4 years. So, I mean, they really need pass catching help. Yeah.
And they know it. I mean, hey, they gave a second round tender to Byron Pringle because they know that they're that lacking in depth.
Yeah. And they have 3 picks in the top 95. So, I mean, there'll be some wide receivers there if they want one. I think that'll get people excited in fantasy for sure. Anytime you're attaching a wide receiver to Patrick Mahomes for the next 4 years. Raiders. Maybe what I would call the worst deal of the offseason was the Kenyon Drake deal. In my opinion, we've already ripped them, I think, enough for that. But not only did they, add Kenyon Drake on this deal, the offensive line also got worse. They moved on from Trent Brown, from Gabe Jackson. They also lost Nelson Aguilar, who I thought had a pretty good year last year. Not a worthy deal of what the Patriots gave him, but a reasonable year. They add John Brown. They did get Yannick Ngakoue. It's just, it's hard to be excited about. The Raiders market is not excited about them either. Again, they're 13-1 to win the AFC West. What do you think about what the Raiders have done?
I don't know how they've gotten better, at least on offense. I don't think that they've gotten better from last year. They're going to, I suppose, hope for internal improvement from Henry Ruggs, although his skill set just kind of never matched perfectly with what Derek Carr does and his style of play. They stripped apart their offensive line. They're going with some younger guys internally, and we'll see how that goes. I mean, Tom Cable, their offensive line coach, does not have a very successful history, and I think they're relying a lot on him, as opposed to these veterans, Gabe Jackson, Rodney Hudson, Trent Brown, these guys that have been very successful in the league for a long time, moving on from those guys in favor of, guys that Tom Cable is supporting.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a mess. We've talked plenty about the Josh Jacobs situation, which is a mess. And yeah, it's just not great for the Raiders right now. Still hope it works out for Darren Waller, though. Still love Darren Waller. Chargers. I feel like I say the same thing every year about the Chargers. This team's talent is excellent. I don't know why they never make the playoffs or go deep in the playoffs. I mean, Anthony Lynn, I think, was kind of donkeyish, but I mean, I don't know. It's just something never adds up. They did add 2 offensive linemen in Corey Linsley, the stud center, on a $62 million deal. They also added Matt Filer on a $21 million deal. I mean, on paper, I think this team is actually pretty good. They're 16-1 to win the AFC, 33-1 to win the Super Bowl. It's not quite as long as I would like, but I think it's at least interesting, especially if you can somehow, want to protect against Patrick Mahomes injuries and stuff like that. So yeah, I think the Chargers are actually good, man. And I like Herbert and Draft Twitter has taken a lot of L's. And I think that they're probably in line to take an L on Justin Herbert. It seemed like nobody liked Justin Herbert coming out. What do you think about what the Chargers have done in their outlook? Again, 33-1 to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Herbert was just sensational as a rookie. The kind of player that he came into the NFL and they weren't even expecting him to start. I mean, they started Tyrod Taylor in week 1. They had no expectations really of playing him early in the season. They go with him, and he elevated players around him. Guys would get hurt. They'd be playing with, Tyron Johnson and Jalen Guyton out there, and these guys are making big plays. And I don't know, just one of the most promising rookie seasons by a quarterback that I can remember. They still have some work to do, I think, on the offensive line, but it's gotten better with those moves that you mentioned, Filer and Corey Linsley. Their pass catchers are all coming back. They're deep there. Eckler is going to be healthy. I took him at 30-1 to win the Super Bowl. I threw a couple darts at a couple different teams. I took the Dolphins as well at 28-1. And the Cowboys, who you don't support me on that, but that's all right. I like being on an island there. But the Chargers are another team that I liked at those odds because I think that Brandon Staley, their new head coach, he was so smart with how he juggled the Rams defense, and I think he's got a lot more talent with the Chargers defense from top to bottom. The Rams have great players, at the top of their defense. But the Chargers have a lot more talent throughout their defense on all 3 levels.
Yeah, I say the same thing every year, man. I think the Chargers have a lot of talent on defense and now on offense with Herbert. So we'll see. I'm excited for them this year. Okay, Dolphins. I think there was some talk, a few weeks ago that, maybe the Dolphins would use a number 3 overall pick on a quarterback. But, they're not going to full 10 on Tua this quickly. So they move on from Ryan Fitzpatrick. And on top of that, the Dolphins move out of the number 3 pick. They traded to the 49ers for the number 12 pick, which by the way, then they traded back to the Eagles. But anyways, they also got a 3rd round pick and 1st round picks from the Niners in 2022 and 2023. I mean, that is a massive haul. So after the dust settles, the Dolphins now have the number 6 overall pick in this draft, which, belonged to the Eagles through the 49ers. The number 18 overall pick, which was their own, the number 36 overall pick, which was in that absurd Laramie Tunsil deal, the number 50 overall pick. I mean, they're absolutely loaded up with draft picks, and they have a lot of good players on their team already. Their win total is 9, and the over is -121. At this point, it just really all comes down to Tua to me, and there's so many varying opinions on Tua. A lot of people are like, you got to give him more time. Other people are like, I've seen enough. The guy sucks. I try to take a more measured approach, but I will concede that Tua's year 1, couldn't compare to Justin Herbert's. I don't know how that's going to play out in the long run, but we'll see. What you think about the Dolphins trade and their offseason? I
like pretty much everything that the Dolphins have done over the past, 2 years, or 3 years. So I think that they had an excellent offseason. Will Fuller is a player that has elevated Deshaun Watson historically. If you look at it, Deshaun Watson splits with and without Will Fuller on the field. I mean, and for like a 4-year stretch now, Will Fuller has elevated the play of Deshaun Watson. Why can't he do that for Tua Tagovailoa? Devontae Parker back healthy, Lynn Bowden, Albert Wilson, Preston Williams, and then I think that they're going, and Mike Gesicki, and then I think that they're going to add, I think it'll be Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts at number 6 overall. I don't think that they could go wrong with either of those guys. I think they might lean toward Kyle Pitts. But I don't know. We'll have to see on that. They're bringing back 4 of 5 offensive line starters. They're all young guys that they're bringing back. And then they added Matt Skura of the formerly of the Ravens at center. So I think that the arrow was up on their offensive line. We saw them play really well defensively last year. Again, I took them at 28-1 to win the Super Bowl. I'm on them. I think that the arrow is absolutely screaming upward on this team and this organization.
Yeah, I don't think they're as good as Buffalo, but I think they're better than New England. And I don't think that the market necessarily agrees with that. But to me, I think the Dolphins are better than New England. Speaking of New England, let's go to them. I mean, you can say you like Aguilar and Bourne, and that's fine. I don't really, but you can say you like them. Regardless, the Patriots grossly overrated what the wide receiver market would be by coming out firing on Aguilar and Bourne. I know the Patriots fans are going to come in and say, you don't understand how the contract was structured, that, next year they're going to look cheap because the salary cap's going to go up. I understand all that. I do. I just don't think that Aguilar and Bourne are the kind of players that I want to be building around even next year at relatively cheap salaries. I like Jonnu and Hunter Henry, but I think it's hard to execute these 2 tight end things in an offense with Cam Newton. So their win total is 9. Over is -143. I think under on them. I mean, I've been saying this for 12 months. I've just been trying to fade New England at every chance that I've gotten. And so I'm still trying to fade New England here. What do you think about them heading into the draft?
Well, it just seems like the Patriots are trying to fade the trend that, where the rest of the NFL is going in terms of being a team that is trying to play power ball in a league where the defenses are all formulated to be, fast and, lightweight, and they're going to try to play bully ball with this roster. And I guess we're going to have to see if it works. Bill Belichick has had a lot of success over the years, but there are reasons for skepticism, as we've expressed here with the condensation. They're going to be a very condensed offense. They don't have a guy who can, take the top off. And I'm not sure that we have a quarterback that can threaten to take the top off either. So, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting sort of experiment.
I love Cam, man. I do. Asking him to run the ball 15 times a game, it's just like, it doesn't feel like that's a winning formula at all. So we'll see. All right. The Jets. So heavy favorite now to be the number 2 overall pick to the Jets is Zach Wilson. What does that mean for Sam Darnold? I think is an interesting question. And this team is, again, expected to be really bad. 3rd lowest win total in the NFL, behind only the Texans and the Lions. Where do you think the Jets are at here heading into the draft, where, again, they have the number 2 overall pick?
Yeah, they've got a lot of draft capital. And it does look like, all signs point to Zach Wilson of BYU going there. And then maybe they'll continue to try to shop Sam Darnold, but it just sounds like they haven't gotten very many good offers for him. Maybe some middle round pick offers, but nothing like a high second or a first. But the Jets they're going to enter the draft with 2 first rounders, number 2 and number 23, 3 picks overall in the top 35, 2 third round picks, and all told 5 top 90 picks. So Joe Douglas, their GM, has been stockpiling draft capital. And he knows that this team is still in a rebuild and unlikely to be very good, even after they draft Zach Wilson. I think that the running back position is a little bit interesting to discuss. They signed Tevin Coleman, but I thought that Ty Johnson showed a lot last year in his limited opportunities. And I'm hopeful that under this new OC, Mike LaFleur, from the Kyle Shanahan tree, the Ty Johnson might be able to be the Raheem Mostert and emerge from this pack. They've got LaMichael Pirine coming back too. They re-signed Josh Adams, a glut of guys, but hopefully we can get a guy to sort of rise to the top and take over as a true feature back.
Yeah, Ty Johnson was definitely performed well last year. Definitely think he deserves a chance to win the starter's job. Okay, Steelers. Steelers are pretty quiet, but they surprisingly got Juju Smith-Schuster back, which we've discussed, but they did lose some guys on defense, Bud Dupree, Mike Hilton. They lost Matt Fowler, who we already mentioned. It just feels like they're in win now mode. And I get that. That's cool. But I don't think the roster is it, man. I mean, they're 16-1 to win the AFC. That's behind New England, Miami, Indy, Cleveland, Buffalo, Baltimore, Kansas City. So like you can be in win now mode. And I get that, like for the Bucks and stuff and for the Packers, I think that makes sense. Pittsburgh, though, I don't know if you should be in win now mode with this roster. So I'm a bit worried about them. What do you think about the Steelers offseason?
Yeah, and I think they're a team that's relying heavily on maintaining an elite level of defensive performance. And Football Outsiders, Pro Football Focus, like any solid analytics website, has shown that relying year over year on elite defensive performance is that ain't it.
Yeah.
And their offensive line right now, man, it looks just awful. They have not re-signed their left tackle, Ali Villanueva. They lost Matt Filer, who is a really dependable starter. He could play right tackle or left guard to the Chargers. Maurkice Pouncey retired. I mean, their offensive line is in really bad shape, and you don't want to see Ben Roethlisberger playing at this stage of his career behind a sieve of an offensive line. And it wasn't even that good last year either. And they didn't have any money to go out and like sign any studs. So, this offense is hanging by a thread. At the end of the day, like Deontay Johnson's probably going to get enough targets. Chase Claypool is going to make enough big plays for these guys to be fantasy factors. But I think in real life, they're going to struggle offensively.
Yeah, I like finding a fade in real life on the Steelers for sure. All right, last team we're going to do today is the Tennessee Titans. Big story of the Titans offseason is the weaponry that they lost. They lost Jonnu Smith. They lost Corey Davis. They lose Adam Humphries. They do bring in Josh Reynolds, and I do like the Ferk Daddy, Anthony Ferkser, a little bit. But yeah, the formula here is very clearly the same: to win with Derrick Henry, ride the big dog, and be very efficient in play action passing with Ryan Tannehill. Now, the big winner that everybody is excited about, Evan's excited about, we're excited about, everybody's excited about, A.J. Brown. Corey Davis averaged 6.6 targets per game. Jonnu was 4.3. Adam Humphries was 5.0. A.J. Brown only averaged 7.6 targets per game last year, and he was still the wide receiver 5 in points per game on the season behind Devontae, Tyreek, Steph Diggs, Calvin Ridley. So it's an exciting time for A.J. Brown. I still think despite all the losses, this team is still very good, and I actually think they're better than the Colts. You can get the Titans right now at plus 130 to win the AFC South. The Colts are even money. Last year it was a little bit better. I had the Titans at plus 185 to win the division. But yeah, I think the Colts are still, the Titans are still very, very good team. And obviously AJ Brown is the big winner of the offseason. What do you think about what they've done?
Yeah, I was huge on the Titans last year, and I'm going to stay big on the Titans this year. You could get them at plus money over 9.5 in a 17-game season. I think that's a very nice price, plus 123. I think A.J. Brown is going to – I think this is his TO year. This is going to be his coming out TO year. They do need to add more talent in the pass catcher core, but right now, his top target competition is Josh Reynolds and Anthony Ferkser. So huge year coming for AJB.
Yeah. Okay. We have said it all on the AFC. Hope you guys enjoyed. We're going to shift into draft mode starting very soon here. Stay tuned for that on the podcast coming up. Also going to have some more rankings debate coming up as well. Don't hesitate to shoot us a note, leave us a review on iTunes. Let us know what kind of topics you want to hear about here as we are into the off season in April. For producer Luke, for Evan, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.